welcome back to the Keizer Virtual Solutions channel. This video has been long overdue and I'm excited to dive right in. So I have known for a long time now that what we do at Keizer Virtual Solutions is so much deeper than a CRM implementation, and our pricing reflects that. What we actually do is custom design your business development process to sustain your next level of growth. And we do that through, yes, implementing a CRM, but also custom creating all of the intake and onboarding assets that you need, including your new and improved proposals, your email templates, your automations, handmade and tailored to your specific industry and your specific brand values and needs. So what you end up with is not just a CRM that sits pretty on a shelf, like, let's face it, 70% plus of organizations have. You end up actually with a CRM that is fully set up, that communicates in a way that is authentic to you and what you stand for and what you represent, and infuses your personality and voice into everything that is part of your process, from the questionnaires that we set you up with, to every single email automations that your clients would get sent, to the proposals that we help you make. So what I'm going to show you today is a behind the scenes walkthrough of how we set up one of my long-standing clients, Mary Houle, an executive speech coach based in Ottawa, with her new and improved client intake and onboarding process, in this case through HoneyBook. I do want to share with you that we actually are now pivoting to doing builds like this exclusively in GoHighLevel, but this was an extremely fun HoneyBook build that we did towards the end of last year that we still want to share with you all and celebrate through adding to our portfolio. So take a look. I'd love to hear any insights that you have to share in the comments. And if you're interested in following along with more behind the scenes content like this, definitely hit that subscribe button. We're going to be doing a whole lot more behind the scenes content going forward. Enjoy. Very first thing we did was to set up the company brand settings. So there is a specific place to do this inside the system. And what we did was set up the company name, added all the company contact information. And the biggest part here is the custom theme. So this is where we set her fonts, we set her brand colors, the colors that we wanted for buttons and things like that, and for input borders and questions. We set her logo, her secondary logo, her overall main brand color, uploaded some initial images to start with to her library here, and set up her email signature for her, as well as a one-liner about the company and a paragraph blurb and all her social media links. And then we went through the settings piece by piece and we set up her project types. And this is all based on the information that we asked the client to upload into a folder for us. So we had her upload her existing proposals, her existing contracts, her current clients, existing scripts that she was using, basically everything that she already had in Google Doc format, and use that to then start creating her settings from here. So these are her project types. This is basically where you set what type of services the business offers. And we set their lead sources using actual information of where they get their main leads from, and organize some tags here. This is one of the best features that we love about CRMs, is the ability to tag leads and clients based on what package they've selected, where they are in the pipeline. Really any type of filter you want to be able to filter for is what you can use tags to do. And then we set up her notifications based on what we know her preferences are for things like payment reminders and all of that stuff. Integrations is where we worked with her on integrating her Google Calendar and her Zoom account. That's all we integrated for this particular client. There's lots of other tools you can integrate, as you can see. And that was pretty much the completion of the first step. So one thing we always ask our clients for, because step 2 of all of this is setting up their schedulers, we ask them for a Google Doc listing all their existing scheduler information. So list each scheduler that you currently have, what the availability settings are for each of those schedulers, and any other additional information we need, like for example, whether you add buffers before or after calls. And we get that from them as part of the upfront information that we collect as well. And so the next phase was setting up her scheduler. So we went to Tools, Scheduler, and this is where we built out the 5 different schedulers that she needs to run her business. So of course, the most important one is the consultation call scheduler. And that is what she uses to do her sales calls. So we give that a name, a session type. This is where that Zoom integration comes in, set that up. And then instructions with a description of what this session is for, the availability, the buffer and minimum notice that she needs, and then stuck with the template built-in confirmation message from there. And then we just went through and did the same thing for her coaching call scheduler, which is what clients use to actually schedule their coaching sessions once they become a paying client. A progress update call scheduler, a regular conversation with Mary scheduler for networking calls and coffee chats that are not sales calls. And then she likes to do these accent confidence Friday sessions, so there's a separate scheduler for that. The next step in all of our builds is to create a contact form and embed that onto the client's website so that their leads can start filling out an inquiry form that then leads to them being able to schedule calls and start receiving automatic messages in the back end. And so we set up a default contact form under lead capture for this client here. And how we did that is we were able to replicate parts of what her existing contact form on her previous system looked like and just buff that up and improve that a bit. So that's the thing about our CRM builds, you guys, is we don't just rebuild what you already have in a new platform. Like anyone can do that. And that's why there's different ranges in the CRM build services that you can purchase, right? So if you want someone to just recreate what you already have, that's one thing, and that's probably a much lower budget project. But what we do that's very distinct is we take what you already have and we analyze it, we compare it to what your overall brand stands for and what we envision for your business as a whole and what we understand your brand values to be through our interactions with you and the information that you relay and the confirmations that we receive. And we then optimize the things that you already have in place. And that's why that initial audit that I do with each client is so key, because that's where I find out what their existing process is, what their existing assets are for intake and onboarding, and start to figure out where the gaps are, where there's room for improvement, whether it's visual improvements through design and brand clarification, whether it's process improvements through improving and adding more automations, or whether it's through further asset development or asset refinement, because oftentimes people come to us with assets that are really underdeveloped or haven't been updated in a very long time and don't match their up-to-date services. So I'll end that rant there and continue that on later in this video. But the default contact form is where we take pieces of what their existing contact form had and start buffing that up and improving that. So here we set up this contact form to look like so. It collects the person's full name, their email address, phone number, their desired start date, which is not a required question because a lot of times people just don't know what service they're interested in. This is the step that then allows us to start building automated intake flows that are unique for each specific service. So based on what service they select here in the contact form, they'll receive a different intake automated flow from other options. And that's where all the fun really begins. How did they hear about us? This is so key because this is where you figure out where your leads are coming from, what channel is actually working for you. And you'd be surprised how many people don't track this. And then we leave an optional box for them to share a little information about why they're here. So that's the contact form, which is a very pivotal step, and then actually gets embedded through code and other stuff onto the client's website to look like so. Very clean, on brand. We actually did this client's website as well. We'll be covering that in a separate video. I'll drop the link for that in the caption as well. But this is how the contact form from the CRM then gets added to the website so that the website and CRM are now talking to each other. Because it's those integrations that will allow us to tie everything together and have a lead tracking ecosystem that connects all the different dots. All right, so next, this is where we get into the real meat of the work. It's where we start to work on the client's templates. So depending on the package selected, we'll create a proposal template for the number of services selected. So usually that's 1, sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's as many as 5. And our package's pricing vary based on that. And that includes the template for their contract and their invoices. Now, again, we create refined versions of their proposal. So many clients in that initial submission stage will give us, actually all clients are required to give us their existing contracts, their existing proposals, their existing invoices as samples so that we can see what they're currently doing. And then we take that, and when we're doing the build, we'll expand on that to create a fully refined version of it. Now, what we like to do in HoneyBook specifically is create one proposal template per service that includes a overall welcome note towards that coaching program, the agreement, the invoice, and the next steps page. So I'm going to go ahead and show you one that we created for Mary for her 9-month coaching package. For the purposes of this video, I will say the pricing here is an example. Of course, it varies per client that it may vary per client that she takes on. It may also be subject to increase and all of that stuff. So take it more as an example, because that was the whole point of this, was to record an example of what we did. So let's keep that in mind as a little caveat there. And Mary was gracious enough to allow us to record this video. So for the 9-month coaching package, what we did here is we created, like I said, that 5-page proposal structure. This is really our signature proposal structure that we do for every CRM build that we take on. So there's the introduction page, 9-month coaching package proposal prepared for. It's blank in preview mode, but when you exit preview mode, you'll see here that there's what's called smart fields. And these things auto-populate in HoneyBook anyway, and in GoHighLevel too, based on the client's unique information. So what does that mean? Mary doesn't need to sit here and type the person's name and the date every single time she sends a proposal. The system will auto populate that information for her. Those are the little things that make all of this so much easier when it comes time to send a proposal. That saves our clients over 3 hours per client that they onboard, right? So it's extremely important. And then this is where we introduce what they're going to get out of this experience. And we created all of this, and we love doing that. We get to know the client's brand, we get to know their values, like I said, their style of voice, and we work on a description of their service that sounds like them. And that's what sets our builds apart as well, is we really go to far lengths to understand your brand voice, and we will take all of that into consideration to create first iterations of things for you that we then get your eyes on and review and refine further from there. But it eliminates a lot of that mental work that you would otherwise have to do first. And then this introduces how they'll work together. And these are the direct outcomes that they'll get out of this program. And then on the next step, on the next page, we've put the next steps. And we did that because a lot of times when you send proposals, if you put the next steps after payment, which is where I used to put them for my clients, I noticed leads a lot of times would skip that page. And that was problematic because they would submit the payment and they would just check out. But I want them to see the next steps, right? Because I want them to be prepared for what comes after. So I've started moving it to the second page, and that's yielded much better results. So this tells them what happens after you sign and pay, right? You confirm your kickoff session. Basically, you begin your coaching. The agreement, I'm not going to show the entirety of it. But again, we took Mary's original contract, provided our insights on it, and helped develop that a little bit further. Of course, our contracts do clearly state that we don't provide official legal advice in any way, shape, or form, but we certainly do help our clients develop their contracts a little bit further if we see certain things are missing. Really, the main part here is taking their contract and putting it into this new, beautiful proposal format. We included the invoice here with a description of the service and taxes already preset for where most of her clients live. And in the payment form is where the client can then input their payment information. And so what used to take Mary lots of back and forth, 10 plus emails per new lead onboarded, lots of different files, an agreement file, and then an invoice file in a different system, and then a payment link, all of that is now put into a 5-page super clean format that she just has to send with the hit of one click. And this is where our clients experience so much ease. But the templates are not just limited to proposals. Like I said, we also create intake and feedback questionnaires per service listed or included in the package. And one thing I'd say is sometimes our clients don't have feedback questionnaires. Sometimes they don't have intake questionnaires. And again, what sets our package apart is we have no problem creating those from scratch. That's why our packages are priced the way they are, because it allows for room for those kinds of little touches that wouldn't be included in a very standard, I'm just going to set the system up for you approach, which is not at all the approach that we take. So let's look at Mary's intake questionnaire, which is one of my favorite parts of this build. So it sets the scene of what the goal is for this questionnaire, asks them for their date of birth, And that is so that Mary will be able to send them birthday gifts if she decides to do that, right? Or at least wish them a happy birthday on their actual birthday. And again, it asks them where they first heard about Mary and her services. It asks them what drew them to coaching at this moment in their life. What would success in coaching look like? What specific goals, deadlines, or events they might have. And is there anything about your identity or lived experience you'd like Mary to understand as we begin? This is an important question here to include because a lot of Mary's work as a speech coach and a communication coach actually ends up also going into the realm of who they are as a person and what things they might be struggling with on a personal level, right? Because so many of our communication challenges are tied to deeper things that are going on inside us, like things like childhood trauma or relationship problems or a number of other things that continue to affect how we communicate today. And so this was an important question to include for her to be able to review their response and really prepare for the coaching container accordingly. And then there's the feedback questionnaire that we also created that highlights, it gives them a chance to reflect on how the coaching went. So in what ways has your communication changed? What parts of the coaching experience were most meaningful? Is there anything you would have liked to learn more about? If someone were considering coaching with Mary, what would you want them to know? We very importantly give them a space to provide a testimonial and then include a request for them to copy paste that testimonial into Google as a Google review. This is something that I always do in any CRM build, is I also look at ways to grow the client's Google business portfolio through including their Google review link here. And then just confirming that they're comfortable with this testimonial being shared and giving them the opportunity to upload a headshot as well that Mary can use to share their testimonial on her socials if they're open to providing that. So those are some of the ways that we create file templates. Another thing I want to highlight that we do for each client is we create email templates as well. And again, we create the vast majority of these, and actually in most builds, all of these from scratch. And so what we do is we keep the built-in templates that the system provides, and then we'll just add a whole bunch of new templates to that so that eventually we can set up the automations, which is going to be the last phase here. So to give you an example, let's find the contact form response. Okay, so let's say I go to Mary's website and fill this out. We'll do a little test together. I should probably name it test 2. Okay, we'll let that take a second to come in. But what this is setting up the email templates in here for the delivery of various communications. So the first one, most important one in this case, is an immediate acknowledgement for the people who select private coaching on her contact form on her website. So if someone selects private coaching, they'll get this email that says, let's talk about your voice, your goals, and what's next. Hi, first client, first name. And again, this is important to set up with the smart field so that when it's time to build the automations, you can do that and have these emails sent out and still feel personable because it's going to auto-populate the person's first name and their information. Thank you for reaching out. I saw that you're interested in private coaching, and I'm genuinely excited to learn more about what's coming up for you. This is where the real work and joy begins. Let's start with a consultation call to explore what you're looking for and see if we're a good fit. You can book a time that works for you right here. And this is where that link to the consultation call that we set up as a scheduler comes in. Looking forward to connecting Mary. And then we provided them with an alternative way to contact her in case none of the times in her scheduler work. So if I go back to my inbox here, you'll see that I got this incoming email, pronounced communication. Let's talk about your voice, your goals, and what's next. That is from that email template that I just showed you. Now it says test because that's what I filled in as my first name to alert Mary that I'm just doing a test run. And what's cool is even on her side, she'll get this notification, test inquired about your services. So that's when the lead gen starts to come in, and it auto creates a project for that new lead. And inside the project, the system auto inputs their responses to the contact form. And you can also see the automations that were sent. Okay, so I'm getting ahead of myself here. If I go back to email templates, you'll see that we created lots more email templates aside from this one. So another key one that we created is let's get you scheduled. And that is for the people who have signed their coaching agreement and issued their first coaching payment. This is where we say, I'm thrilled to be working with you. Your payment has been received. To get started, go ahead and use the link below to book your first coaching session. And that's the link to that other scheduler, the coaching call scheduler, that we also created as a scheduler. And this is your dedicated time, whether we're diving into strategy, confidence, storytelling, or the next big thing on your plate. And so we build out many, many more email templates like that. And in the automations phase is where all of that then gets put together into automated workflows. Okay, so we've done all the things. We've created the contact form. We've set up the brand details in the settings and the preferred notifications. We have set up all the schedulers, and we have created the various templates for the proposal and questionnaires and emails. Where we then start to conclude the build is with the setting up of the automations. And so I'll just walk you through one, the most important sequence that we set up. And that is definitely the contact form private coaching sequence. Like I said earlier, for all the people who select private coaching in the contact form. So how this works is contact form submitted is the trigger, specific project type is private coaching, and then send email, and then that email that I showed you earlier where we give them the link to book the consultation call. Other automations we created were contact form for other project types. Sometimes people might select the other option here. Right? If they select other, then there needs to be an automation for that as well. If they select speaking engagements or workshops, there needs to be an automation for that as well. So we created different automations for those. And next, there's the consultation call booking automation. So if someone schedules the consultation call, they'll get an email that I showed you. Oh no, I haven't shown you this one yet. They'll get an email that welcomes them to pronounce and gives them more information to establish credibility right away. So thank you for booking consultation. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Mary Hool. And then immediately we hit them with her credentials. With nearly 30 years of experience in the field and a Master of Science in Speech Sciences from UBC, I combine speech science with the art of storytelling to help leaders speak with ease and conviction. And then we give them some links to grow her channels even more, but also to keep them in her orbit, right? Even if they don't end up becoming a paying client, we want them to connect with her on LinkedIn, and we want them to download her free resource and join her mailing list. And we want to give them a way to learn more about her and what she does before they hop on this call, because sometimes people book a call before they even have enough of an understanding of what you do. And then after the call is where Mary will send them the proposal if she feels they're a good fit. And then based on whether they issue a payment or not, they'll get the email that invites them to schedule their first coaching call. Now this is how it looks in HoneyBook. Sometimes we even have the proposal sending automated, but that really only works in some use cases. So it really depends on the client if they want that step to be automated or not. And it also depends on their service types and their overall business. In GoHighLevel too, these look very similar, even if the infrastructure there is very different, and we'll be doing some different content on how all of this looks on that side. But yeah, this is where everything comes together. The contact form comes together with the schedulers, comes together with the templates, comes together with the emails, to all make for a very cohesive intake experience.